Can you remember one of the worst scenes you ever had to deal with?
Worst scenes I ever had to deal with was
A case that will forever terrify me is the unsolved disappearance of the Springfield Three. Because what do you mean 3 women all disappeared from one house in the middle of the night without leaving behind one single clue?
These are 3 facts about serial killers that could save your life. Number 3, you're in the most danger when you're...
Was there ever a story that you were telling that actually made your skin crawl?
Oh, man. I can't remember the names because there's been so many stories, but this is a very famous story. There was this guy.
Grand Rising family, welcome to Crime Stories Saturdays, where we take a break from life. And instead of doing some inspiration, we're going to do some investigation. There may be a trigger warning or 2 or 3, maybe 4, I don't know, I hope not. But if there is, we're watching crime stories. So, quote of the day, you have to believe in yourself when no one else does. That's what makes you a winner. I know that's right. And our affirmation for the day, I have the divine right to be prosperous, happy, and abundant. Everything I need is already within me. I am in perfect harmony with the energy of the divine creator and the universe. I act today with discipline, courage, and focus. Ain't nothing to it but to do it. Let's get straight into it.
This is the most insane small town story I ever heard. On Friday the 13th, 1990, a teenager obsessed with Satan and serial killers terrorized his small Texas town. This is a true story from the Friday the 13th Murders documentary show. Glenn Milner was just 19 when his dark fantasies exploded into real dark violence. Panhandle, Texas was a small, very, very conservative Christian town, so all of his interests made him stick out like a sore thumb. After his crimes, even law enforcement was terrified to enter his bedroom. The walls were painted black. On the shelf, there was a Necronomicon, which is like a satanic ritual spell book. Rumor has it he would drink. Slasher movie posters covered his walls, and then he had 15 to 20 grotesque masks all over the room, all showing different versions of how someone could pass. A life-size mannequin that he turned into a... He was obsessed with death and rituals long before he went on this rampage. During his interrogation, Glenn said that he started his day in an abandoned barn, also known in town as the Haunted House. He drew a pentagram in the dirt and placed candles, preparing the spot for his first victim. He picked up a kid from school named Frankie, and he told them they were gonna ride around, drink beer, just hang out, be friends. But once he pulled up to the haunted house, everything changed. Glenn held Frankie forced him onto his knees, and stuck in his mouth. Glenn's plan after this night was over is that he wasn't going to survive, but more on that later. But he said that he had been told by the devil that in order to do this, he had to take a virgin. Frankie was found in the morning face down in his own liquids. Another really sad detail is they found a hit list in Glenn's room and Frankie was on the hit list. And they had gone to every single potential victim's house to check on them. And when they got to Frankie's house, he wasn't home and his parents were like, oh, he's good, he's out with a friend. And that friend was Glenn. And the police did nothing. They didn't even question it. Glenn's next attack, he knocks on a stranger's door. He pretends he needs help after getting in a wreck. A man named Jimmy Britton opens the door and he gets by Glenn a million times, but he survives. Then we have Ken, who gets a knock at his door. He looked through the peephole outside and he said that he saw yellow glowing eyes. His gut was telling him something was wrong. He didn't open the door, of course, but Glenn was insisting he needed to come in and he said, Glenn, you are not coming in my home. He said that something in Glenn's eyes was different. It wasn't the Glenn he knew, which is a common thing people say throughout this night. Ken said, that night I knew he was possessed. And that's when he ended up getting through the door. Then Glenn went to a party and he was quiet. He kind of was observing. He wasn't doing much. He took some pills, he drank, and then he threw up everywhere. Meanwhile, the police were learning something even more disturbing. Part 2 is already up. Follow if you like this.
That's a crazy story.
This is how they caught the Friday the 13th killer. Glenn had scripted his own real-life horror movie and he was playing a game of cat and mouse with the police. He had nothing to lose. He didn't plan to see another night. Also, this is from the Friday the 13th Murders documentary show. Police learned that the last time he saw his friend Greg, he gave him a note. Greg was also talking about the demon thing. He was saying that Glenn's voice sounded different. It was like something inside of him snapped. The handwritten note said, don't ask any questions, go under the bridge, there's gonna be a box, and listen to everything in that note. So the police went right to the bridge and they saw this ammunition box and they were like, oh no, like we don't have time for anyone to see if it's gonna blow. So they opened up the box anyway, and inside were 3 letters. One was to Greg, one was to his parents, and one was to his girlfriend at the time. And then there was a tape too. These letters were Glenn's goodbyes. In the letters and the videos, he signs them as Damien, and I'm sorry to any Damiens out there. He said he needed to change his name to Damien because it would make him closer to Satan. His girlfriend was interning at the news station, and in the note that he put for her, he said, "Here's the story of the decade for you, princess." The police are also talking in this documentary. They're like, "We're so scared. We didn't know where he was. We didn't know what he had planned." That is some small town energy right there. They didn't know what to do, but they wanted to feel like they were doing something, so they just started driving around looking for him. They're like looking down alleys, looking at the park, and then eventually they got to the station and his car was there. And at first he put a weapon right under his chin and the police were like, "Don't do it." And he said, "Here I am, you've got me." And he put it down. And it's interesting because during his arrest, he completely changed from this like maniacal monster. He was actually extremely cooperative. The reason behind this, he later revealed, was that he had failed Satan. He forgot the words to the incantation to finish what he was trying to do and not see the next day, if you get what I'm saying. He had 12 goals for the night, but he only ended up succeeding with one of them. Ken actually went to go see the court hearing, and Glenn's eyes were glued to him the whole time with hate in his heart. When everything was over, he stood up and he pointed at Ken like this, and he said, "If I ever get out, I will finish the job." And Ken said he wholeheartedly believes him. Our Friday the 13th killer desperately wanted the death penalty so he could go to the other side and see his father. You know, Satan. But they ended up getting him for 2 attempted murder and 1 murder instead of capital murder. And he is living out 3 life terms right now.
That's a long time.
Pay attention to the girl in the white shirt. This is 18-year-old Nia Wilson. She's getting off the train to transfer, like many other people in the crowded station. But watch again. This time, don't look at the girl. Instead, watch the man behind her in the white and gray hoodie. He follows her off the train, pulling his hood down and taking off his sunglasses. He looks around as if to plan an escape route. Then, he reaches down, pulling something out of his pant leg. Look closer. The item he pulled out is a knife. He quickly covers it up with his sweatshirt, but he has it at the ready, and no one else in the busy train station has noticed. The girl he's following, Nia, is on her way home with 2 of her older sisters, Tashaya and Latifa. They just called their dad to let him know they should be back soon, and they wait for the train doors to open. But moments later, the man attacks. Taking advantage of the panic that follows, he blends in with the crowd. He runs down the stairs and exits the station, running through the gate before seeing police outside. Recorded on an officer's body cam, he pretends to be a witness to the attack, telling them someone was injured on the platform. He waves them up, and they run to the scene to help the girls, unknowingly letting their attacker get away. He escapes from the station without anyone chasing after him, and he runs to a nearby parking structure. Then, he changes into a different hoodie, putting the other in a backpack, and he takes off his shoes and sweatpants. Next, he runs out and over to a bus stop. When a bus pulls up, he fakes an injury so he can get a free ride. After getting off the bus and away from security cameras, he disappears. He believes he thought of everything to escape justice. But in this footage, police will find the crucial mistake he made during his getaway that will ultimately lead to his capture and avenge the sisters' attack. It's July 22nd, 2018. Around 9:45 p.m., the girl's dad gets a frantic call from his daughter, Tashaya.
I couldn't understand what she was saying. All I could recognize her saying was Bart. I figured maybe they got in a little skirmish with somebody on Bart.
Unsure of what he'll find, he rushes to the car right away and drives to the MacArthur BART station, or Bay Area Rapid Transit. All he knows is that his girls are in trouble, but what he sees there is worse than he could ever imagine.
When I got there, I see a bunch of ambulance and police. I see them loading Latifa in the ambulance. I seen blood dripping down her arm, and I asked her what happened. She just said, "Go check on Nia." I turn around, I run up the stairs at Bart, and I see my daughter's body. It's the hardest thing I ever experienced in my life. Seeing my baby dead.
It's impossible for Nia's dad to wrap his head around what he's seeing. In less than 3 minutes from when she was stabbed in the neck, Nia has died. Her dad also has.
Damn. I forgot to get part 2.
71,000 black girls under 17 went missing in 2021. And they were identified as runaways. 9 out of 10 were identified as runaways. If you're identified as a runaway, no Amber Alert, no law enforcement attention, Nothing.
Right.
You know, saying things like juvenile prostitutes. Juveniles means children.
Right.
Children cannot consent to sex work.
Right.
They're children.
Yeah.
But black and brown girls get adultified. Like, we are demonized and we are blamed for our own abuse, which means you're not going to take it as seriously. Our innocence is never guaranteed. Right? It's always up for debate. And the media decides who holds importance, which is why we know about Gabby. We know that hashtag. We know all of those hashtags. 71,000?
Yeah.
Name one hashtag. Who do we know?
If you are a woman of color, I am sorry. I am sorry that society has treated you the way that they have. If you are a man of color, and I just, my heart goes out to you. I want you to know, over here, we don't see color. I love you. And I think you're beautiful. I hate it. I hate it. And things are going to change around here. I love you.
2 weeks ago, Shandell Harris was shot to death at a pool in Miami where her 11-year-old daughter was taking swim lessons.
Images obtained by NBC6 show a man in handcuffs being escorted out of the Michael Ann Russell Jewish Community Center in North Miami Beach following a deadly shooting at the JCC Sunday afternoon. Miami-Dade police say a 45-year-old man killed his wife.
The suspect, Shandell's husband, Carl Watts Jr., is who police and witnesses say are responsible for Shandell's brutal murder. When the families of Chiquita Scott and the family of Vicki Simmons found out about the murders, they were shocked but not surprised when they found out who the killer was. And that is because both Chiquita and Vicki's families say that they were both involved with Carl Watts Jr. But Vicki was murdered in 2009, and Chiquita has been missing since 2014. And no one has ever been charged in either crime. According to Chiquita's family, she met Carl Watts Jr. her senior year of high school. She dated him on and off, and then they eventually had a son. But the relationship, according to Chiquita's family and friends, was physically abusive. After years of back and forth, Chiquita finally decided to end things with Carl, which her family said he was not happy about. Chiquita tried to move on, and she even got engaged. But because they shared a son, Chiquita attempted to co-parent with Carl. In June 2014, Chiquita went to go meet Carl to pick up money for their son and was never seen again. Carl claimed that Chiquita had left and that he had nothing to do with her disappearance. But Chiquita's family was convinced that Carl kidnapped Chiquita and did something to her. Carl was named a person of interest, but he was never charged in connection with Chiquita's disappearance. 5 years before Chiquita disappeared, Vicki Simmons dated Carl Watts too. But after what her family described as a controlling, abusive relationship, Vicki broke up with Carl. In February 2009, Vicki's family reported her missing. But 2 days later, Vicki's body was found in a motel on Biscayne Boulevard in Miami. Both Chiquita and Vicki's families believe that Carl Watts Jr. had something to do with what happened to these women. And now that Carl Watts Jr. is in jail accused of murdering his wife, they hope that they'll get answers soon about what happened to Chiquita and Vicki. On episode 59 of the Black Girl Gone podcast, we tell Chiquita and Vicki's story.
Are you following me?
Just enjoying the view.
You're bad.
Is that your car parked down by the road? You shouldn't leave it there. They'll give you a ticket.
You park ranger or something?
No.
Did you see a guy on your way up here?
Why? You waiting for someone?
What? I'm just going for a swim.
What's your name?
Hey.
I can hardly hear you. Come closer.
Why are you even talking to him still?
What's your name?
Amber?
Why aren't you at school?
I don't go to school.
You think your boyfriend will care that I'm watching you?
Who said I was waiting for my boyfriend?
You know, you shouldn't be swimming by yourself. Every year, 1 or 2 people drown out here, and they're usually swimming by themselves.
I'll be fine.
I like your hair.
Thanks.
Can you touch?
What?
The bottom. Can you touch?
Not from here.
Try it.
Maybe later.
You look like you're getting tired. You want to get out?
I'm just gonna wait for my friend.
I hope he shows up soon.
He's coming.
You know, if you want to get out, I won't look. Scout's honor.
I just want to swim by myself, okay?
You're shaking.
I'm fine.
I don't think he's coming.
Look, man, if you don't get out of here soon, he's probably gonna kick your ass.
I doubt it.
How do you figure that?
Because he's dead.
What?
Girl, swim
Why
away.
don't you just come out now?
Jake!
He can't hear you.
Shut up! Jake!
Girl, why are you still there?
Where are you going?
Stay where you are.
You shouldn't have come out here.
Stay where you are.
Amber. Don't be stupid.
Was there ever a story that you were telling that actually made your skin crawl?
Oh man. I can't remember the names because there's been so many stories, but this is a very famous story. There was this guy, he's a teacher named
Story.
he was found. He I think his wife's dress or something, and he's like in man. But basically, this psychopath, wielding maniac, was living in this family.
Yeah, that's creepy. That was a creepy story.
This video shows the final moments of Samantha Josephson before she gets into the wrong Uber. Josephson was this 21-year-old senior college student, and she was out partying with her friends one night. So it was getting late, so she ordered an Uber, and she was waiting outside for it. That's when her friend said that they saw her getting into a black Impala, but little did they know that would be the last time they'd see her.
Oh no.
So it turns out that car wasn't her Uber. The car belonged to this guy named Nathaniel Rowland.
Oh my, bro, I have chills, bro.
In the video, you can see that black Impala just circling the area as if like waiting for a victim.
Oh my God.
And instantly she knew she made the wrong decision because he wasn't going to her destination, and she couldn't get out because he had child locks on.
No, bro. I'm genuinely have chills all over my body.
And she would suffer like one of the most horrifying deaths ever. She was stabbed at least 120 times.
Oh my God.
So they had the car on camera and police were on it immediately because it was an abduction case. Luckily, Nathaniel wasn't the smartest criminal, and he kind of left a huge trail. He tried to use her credit card at different places, tried to withdraw money. He was even used her car at Wendy's drive-thru they saw him at. So it wasn't too long where they actually caught him. So he pulled him over, and he smelled like weed, so he had probable cause to get him out of the car. He immediately ran. They ended up catching him, but what they would find in the car is actually crazy. They find her car keys.
What?
And her phone.
Is he stupid?
Yeah. And the back seat was covered and still had bloodstains in the back.
Yo, this dude he like wanted to get caught.
They would end up finding an eviction letter to where he used to live with his ex-girlfriend. That would lead him to find the murder weapon. But even with all that evidence, they still needed a witness to put Nathaniel away to make sure he would be found guilty. So they got Nathaniel's ex-girlfriend to testify against him, even though she was like scared and she had a lot of death threats, and she wasn't really sure to testify or not, but she ended up doing it. So he ended up getting life in prison.
I know my son didn't do this.
He is guilty of murder, and if you had any testimony that you wanted to give for the jury to consider, the trial was the time to do that. I'm not listening to any claim of what he did not do.
And her parents ended up starting a foundation called What's My Name? I guess the silver lining of the case is that it brought awareness to rideshare safety.
Yeah.
Yes, be careful, man. Getting in those Ubers.
This woman is the
Make
only
sure it's
female
your
police
guy
officer
or
to
girl.
ever be sentenced to death in the history of America. And her story is absolutely insane. So this lady's name is Antoinette Frank, right? She grew up living primarily with her father. There were reports of SA, of physical abuse. There were even reports of people saying when she showed up places with her father, it looked like they were in a relationship. So it was reported that her father just vanished one day and that he just up and left and she had no idea where he went. She reported him missing. He was never seen again. In 1992, she had applied to be a cop with the New Orleans Police Department. She was originally denied because the psychologist determined that she had several mental disabilities, but somehow she got the job. So this is 1992. 1994, she meets this kid who is a gang member, right? So he ends up getting shot and she was the first responder to come and assist him. Legend has it that as soon as she laid eyes on this like 16-year-old boy, she fell in love with him. She paid for everything for him. She took him out all the time. There were reports of him driving her police cruiser around the city. So she worked part-time as a security guard at this restaurant called the Kim On. And she wasn't the only cop that did. A lot of cops did. One day, she just showed up with her sidekick and they decided that they were going to rob the place. Apparently things went wrong. She ended up shooting and killing 3 of the people that owned the restaurant. 2 of the people that were there ended up running and hiding in a freezer, right? So they didn't get killed. It was reported that this was an extremely brutal execution style murders, right? After they did this, they got in the car. She went and dropped him off at home. And then she ran down to the police station and said, "Oh my God, I heard a report that there were people shot where I work. I need a cruiser to go and investigate." So she runs back over to the store and then she says, "What happened? What happened? Like, I need to do an investigation and I'm here to help you." The survivor said, "Why are you asking me what happened? You were here." That's when it all started to unfold, right? She ended up being convicted of the murders, but that's not the end of the story. While she was in prison, police got a hint from a search dog at her house. They start digging, and under her house, they find a skull. And it was believed to be the same age, and it could very possibly be her father. The New Orleans Police Department never tested the bones to see whose they belong to. It's just an unconfirmed skull that nobody knows. And it's the only female officer in the history of this country to ever be sentenced to death.
That's a crazy story, man. 16
Y'all
though? Come
don't
on,
feel
man.
sorry for this man. This is Lawrence Crowley from Philadelphia. And when his ex-girlfriend decided to end the relationship, Lawrence lost his mind. So one day while she was working her job at a security company, she took her break and she was just sitting in her car. That's when Lawrence popped up, bust out her windows, and started poking her with that you know what. Then he took her out the car, jumped back in his car, and rolled over her 4 times. Unfortunately, she passed away from this. He ended up fleeing the scene and was on a high-speed chase by the police for 3 to 4 hours. So eventually he crashed his car, and when he crashed, he already had the gasoline on the side of him. He pulled all over his body and lit it up. The police was able to put the fire out and get him out the car. Took him to the hospital, took him to jail. He had his day in court and he was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole, plus another 18 years.
Wow. What is wrong with
These
people?
are 3 facts about serial killers that could save your life. Number 3, you're in the most danger when you're being helpful. One of the most commonly used tactics by serial killers is to ask strangers for help. Commonly, you'll see them like on the side of the road and claim that they're broke down and need to get a new tire, or say that they ran out of gas, or even say they need help carrying something up. But these are the moments when you're the most vulnerable. So if you have a weird feeling, it's better to just say no. It's okay to be rude. intrude rather than like be a victim.
Yeah.
Number two, serial killers hunt routines, not people. So for example, serial killers will frequently get their victims from the same situation, from the same bar, or on the same street, or even the same gas station. They usually go to places that they're familiar. One of the hardest things to do though is to be alert when you're doing something that you do regularly. So for example, if you go on walks all the time and you walk the same route, usually you won't really be as alert because it's something that you do all the time. But an easy way to stay safe is to make a game out of it. Try to convince yourself that there is someone out there looking for you and you just gotta find them. Doing this, it's a way to make sure that you're alert even when your guard is down. And number one, if you get taken to a second location, your survival odds plummet. This is a tip that should be shared around the world because it could literally save lives, right? One report said that people who are abducted have between a 60 and 80% chance of survival, but if they are taken to a second location, those chances go down to 5 to 10% chance of survival. So it is so important that if you do end up in a situation where you're abducted, you fight and scream as early and as loud as possible because the first 10 seconds are more important than the next 10 hours.
I almost lost my life.
Oh, the mummy is going to be creepy. I'm so obsessed with this plot. So it's going to be about a daughter who is in the desert and she disappears. And then 8 years later, she reappears as a mummy in a sarcophagus, meaning something went terribly wrong while she was in that desert. And she must have like switched places with the mummy, but then where did the mummy go? Are they one now? How does that work? I know she touched the wrong amulet in the wrong section of a pyramid. And once all of this gets revealed, all of these weird, creepy things start happening. There's like a part of the trailer where there's like a bug coming out of this girl's mouth. I don't know. I'm so sick of these studios taking the mummy and then turning it into this action adventure kind of movie. Like, I want something scary. I want the repercussions of the curse of the mummy. Lee Cronin knows his way around directing a horror movie, so I do have hope. He's actually going to go in a very different direction than any other mummy movie we have seen previously. Now, whether this is good or not, I do not know, because apparently James Wan walked out of the screening, but who knows, maybe he had to go to the bathroom. Lee Cronin says that his mummy movie is like 1 part Poltergeist and 1 part Seven. I do think they should have changed the title from The Mummy, because there are so many movies called The Mummy. Like, let's make this one distinct. I will give you more updates as they come. Follow for more freaky.
I love a good scary movie.
The terrifying human being you see in this photo killed his entire family twice. This man is Gregory Green, and in 1991 he stabbed his wife in the face and chest, killing her and their unborn child. He then called 911 and waited for the police to come. After serving 16 years in prison, he was released in 2008 with the support of family and friends, including a pastor who lobbied on his behalf. He then married Faith Harris, the pastor's daughter, and became a stepfather to her 2 teenage children, and the couple would go on to have 2 daughters of their own. However, on September 21st, 2016, Faith found herself bound with duct tape and zip ties in the basement of their Michigan home. Her foot had been shot, her face slashed with a box cutter, and her 4 children were dead. The killer was her husband, and just as Gregory did when he killed his first wife, he called 911 and waited for police to come. He is now serving life in prison. Let's hope he actually stays put this time.
He should have been serving life to begin with.
Yeah, so if you're not Australian, this is why we don't go into the dark forest. This is a leg mold of a colossi arachnidae, or better known as the swamp spider.
But you're just joking, right? Because that is obviously a tree branch, right?
Right.
Right?
That's a spider for real?
Now, I usually don't do this, but I am actually going to issue a warning. For those of you that hate spiders, feel free to click away. But these are the spiders that I feel like he's talking about. He's calling it the swamp spider. It's also called the huntsman spider.
It's real?
It's a big one. Here it is. You've been warned.
Yeah, right. That's not real. That cannot be real. That cannot be real. Is that real? I will never be going to Australia. That would be wild, bro.
You're sweating. If they don't do that, they'll know. Now go away from here.
That's a movie?
What is 764?
15-year-old boy started the group. He was the beginning of it. He created something that is the worst thing next to all the other things that we've talked about. 764 group is a Satanist cult group that focuses on extreme violence. One of the main things that they focus on is extortion towards children. The main reason why they do a lot of the things that I'm about to show you is to get the recognition for it. They just want their group out there in any way, whether it's negative or positive. They extort children out of material. They extort children into cutting their wrist, hurting themselves, cutting areas of their body, engraving their names into their chests, their legs, their arms, their faces. They've had children commit live on camera in front of audiences of people while they get cheered on, convince children to animals, their pet cats, their pet dogs. They try to convince them to kill their family members, commit mass bestiality, incest, you name it. A lot of it has already been done. This is probably one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life.
You didn't show us anything.
He's dead. He's what? He's dead.
Relax, man. Stay down. Tony.
Just keep him down. That's too much. Stop it.
Oh, no, please.
What the hell is this?
No!
Don't do it. I didn't see a Texas ID.
I'm down. Please, don't do it. I can't live. I can't. Will you let me go, please? Stop. Stop, officer. Okay.
Woo, got it. You're gonna have to stop squirming.
No! Tony, chill out, man.
I just got what you meant by that.
Yeah.
I've got his mom on the phone, and she knows all this stuff. He's dead. He's what? He's dead.
And they were laughing about it.
Can you remember one of the worst scenes you ever had to deal with?
Worst scenes I ever had to deal with was I had a dude that had just got out of jail, and his wife had cheated on him with his brother. So he got out, got high on meth, shot his wife in the head, shot his brother, and then the baby was 3 months old. Shot the baby in the head, put the baby in a suitcase, and threw the baby in the river.
Aww.
And you had to deal with that baby's body.
Yeah. Yep.
Was that the first time dealing with a baby?
So to be honest with you, that week, no. I had that baby that was. I had a 5-year-old that was burned up in an apartment complex because dude was mad at the auntie, so he killed the auntie, not knowing the baby was in there. I had a mother that had strangled a 1-year-old. All this shit is in 1 week. Had a mother that had strangled her 1-year-old. And I had a father that had poisoned his 4 kids, ages from 6 months, I think it was, to like 5. All that shit happened. I had all those kids in 1 week. There's a call, man, where we had, there's some shit that, you know, you take home and it actually does affect you. I had a house. I can't say exactly where it is because shit is still in the midst, but this one particular house, we had same detective, same crime scene. Well, not in this particular case. It wasn't him. It was another detective. But we had this house, man. This this house is fucked up, but bad. Man came in, he shot the baby, 8-month-old baby, shot the 2-year-old daughter, shot the wife, 18-year-old brother, turned around and walked out. 2 years ago, I get called back to the same house, a different family. A man walked around the house, got in the house. She was dating the dude. They ended up getting in the house. He beat her real bad. She called the police. Police showed up. Nobody opened the door. Police left, not knowing that the dude had walked in and beat a 1-year-old baby with a bat. Thought she was dead and basically beat the mama, drug her through the house, and threw her in the bathtub. Both of them died. Same house, a couple years apart. Same people that investigated that scene end up somehow, some way, all getting back together and had to investigate this scene. Craziest shit ever.
Yes.
Oh.
You said earlier you have more authority than.
So yeah,
But there's no way I could be a crime scene investigator. Leave
It's
the
around
babies
4 a.m.
alone,
on
man.
Sunday, November 28th, 1976. You know, it's the weekend after Thanksgiving. Police officer Carl Olson is sitting in his patrol car. He hears the sound of a car speeding down the road. The car screeches to a stop right in front of him, and out jumps 18-year-old Harry De La Roche Jr. He's yelling like, they're dead, they're all dead. Now, before Officer Olson can even react, Harry hops back into his car and he speeds off, heading straight towards his family's home. So he called for backup and followed him straight to the house. Officer Olson said the house was pitch black when he walked in. He pulls out his gun. He kind of moves slowly up the stairs, and he really had no idea what he was walking into. But once he got to the top of the staircase, there was a bedroom to his left. So he shines his flashlight inside, and that's when he saw Miss De La Roche lying in bed. The beam from his flashlight, it kind of caught the pillows on the bed, and both sides of the bed were completely soaked in blood. So he said at that point he realized she was dead. So then Officer Olson heads back into the hallway, and at the far end, his flashlight catches something else, and it's a pair of legs sticking out of a doorway. So he walks closer and he finds Mr. De La Roche lying face down on his son Ronnie's bed. And on the floor right next to him was the youngest boy, Eric. Both of them were gone. So at this point, Officer Olson, he goes back downstairs and reports over the radio that there were multiple homicides at the De La Roche home. When officers start arriving, Harry Jr. tells them that he came home and that's when he found everyone dead. But he had another brother, Ronnie, and he had no idea where he was. He wasn't at the house. So Harry Jr. tells police that Ronnie and their dad, Harry Sr., they actually had a really big fight the night before. And Harry Jr. was kind of telling police, I don't know, maybe he snapped and ran. Police are like, oh, okay, we need to find this Ronnie kid fast. So by this time, the sun is coming up and word is spreading fast. You know, there's a bunch of police cars on the block. So neighbors, they start coming outside, gathering around. Reporters show up. At the end of the day, everyone's asking, what the hell happened inside the home? What happened? How does this picture perfect family go from Thanksgiving dinner to this?
Yeah, that was wild.
On March 1st, 2008, two men broke into a home in Alba, Texas, with a mission to execute a horrific killing spree that left two young children and their mother dead. The only survivors were 16-year-old Erin Caffey and her father, Terry Caffey. Officer Dickerson quickly headed along US 69 and turned down the road that led through the woods to the Caffey's property. He could see that the house was engulfed in flames. He then sped down the road to the closest neighbor's house where that 911 call originated from. And as he arrived, Tommy looked relieved. Just sprawled across his living room floor lies Terry Caffey, shot 5 times. Terry had miraculously crawled for over an hour, 500 yards from his home to his neighbor's home, seeking help. During his journey, though, he fell into a creek where he almost drowned.
And I realized quickly somebody's standing over us shooting us. And I just knew in a minute this was going to be it. They're going to finish me off. I remember saying, saying, God, just please be with my family and make it quick. I heard my son Matthew cry out. He said, Charlie, why are you doing this? No, Charlie, no, please, why are you doing this? And then I'm trying to get up, and then all of a sudden, bam, bam, I heard the gunshot. So I realized Matthew's been shot. So I managed to get to my feet. I'm trying to get out the bedroom door to get upstairs to my children. But by this time, the house is totally engulfed. I'm hit by a wall of flames, forced back into my bedroom, and there's Penny laying there. And when I saw her, I immediately knew she was gone, because not only did they come in and shoot, that he also came in with this samurai type sword, and she would nearly be decapitated.
Yeah.
He says, I'm going to take your son. And I said, take me instead.
This is Barbara Mabey and her son, Dale. Barbara loved her son more than anything in the world, and just like most mothers, she would have done anything to keep him safe. But on November 14th, 1974, their life took a disturbing turn for the worse when 6-year-old Dale came knocking frantically at the neighbor's door. He was covered in blood, with marks on his wrists and ankles. His mother, Barbara, had been kidnapped. November 16th, 2 days later, Highway Patrol Trooper Charles Eugene Campbell identified Barbara's stolen car in Perry, Florida, nearly 400 miles from where she was taken. After telling dispatch he was pulling the driver over, Trooper Campbell was never heard from nor seen again. November 17th, the entire police force is in pursuit of a man named Paul John Knowles, a suspected serial killer responsible for over 35 murders across the country. After Knowles crashed into a ditch, he ran off on foot, vanishing into the forest. When police examined the vehicle, they found no trace of the trooper or Barbara. For over 5 months, the man they called the Casanova Killer spreads terror across the U.S., killing faster and more viciously than anyone else in history. He might have gotten away with it if it wasn't for the woman who outsmarted him, the one who survived by making the Casanova Killer fall in love with her. Although she and her sister were alike in most ways, doctors soon figured out something was wrong with Beverly, Barbara's sister. She had cerebral palsy.
Throughout my whole lifetime, I always called her Bevy. We both knew each other's thoughts and inner feelings. She was the smart, funny person, and I was a serious person.
Although Barbara shared a special bond with her twin sister, she also felt the impact of her limitations. Even when she was little, Barbara always made sure Beverly could live a full and happy life. And when their father passed away, she took it upon herself to help her mom around the house. Barbara always had a positive outlook on life, and she was happy with the way things were. But everything changed in April 1968.
When I brought Dale home from the hospital, he was the light of my life. He was so beautiful. I couldn't get over hugging and kissing and singing lullabies to him. I adored my son.
After a heartbreaking split with the father, Barbara decided to raise her son Dale in her mother's house. It was the best decision of her life. Everything was perfect. It's May 1974 when tragedy first strikes the Mabey household. Barbara's mother dies. Both her and her sister Beverly are distraught by the loss, but as the months pass, they do their best to keep a lively home for young Dale, who is now 6 years old. What none of them know is that 1974 would become the worst year in all of their lives.
Thursday, November the 14th, 1974 was like any other day to me. Got ready for work, Dale went and got ready for school, Beverly got her breakfast and was happy.
After dropping off Dale at school, Barbara heads down to the radio station where she works as a copywriter.
When it was almost noontime, I tried to call my sister at home and she didn't answer. And she always answered.
At first, Barbara doesn't make anything of it and carries on with her day. After work, she drives home with her son, expecting to see her sister. As they both enter the house, they shout for Beverly, but get no answer.
So I said to Dale, go look for Bevy, and I'm going to go get some water, honey.
As Dale goes across the house to look for his aunt, Barbara goes to the kitchen and walks up to the sink.
All of a sudden, I had this horrible feeling. I had chills going up and down my arms. Maybe it was instinct, fear, but I turned around.
But before we continue the story of Barbara,
the murder of Colleen Ritzer, who was only 24 years old when her life was stolen from her. Colleen Elizabeth Ritzer was born on May 13th, 1989 to her parents Peggy and Tom. As young as just 3 years old, Colleen had already really developed a knack for helping other people, and the older she got, the more obvious it became that she had one true calling in life, and that was teaching. In 2011, she was a senior at Assumption College, and part of her degree required that she complete, obviously, student teaching credits, and she was assigned to work with high school students struggling with math. So Colleen got a job as a math teacher, of course, at Danvers High School in Danvers, Massachusetts. So that brings us to Tuesday, October 22nd, 2013, and that day was very normal routine for Colleen. She taught a full day of classes, finishing around 2 p.m., and then planned to stick around for another hour in case students wanted to come in and get some additional help. Now, to my knowledge, there were 2 students that stayed later that day, and one of these students was a new student named Philip Chisholm. Philip had recently moved with his mom to Danvers from Tennessee because his parents had gotten divorced. He was on the junior varsity soccer team and is said to have been pretty decent at that. But that Tuesday, he actually failed to show up for soccer practice. But later that evening, around 6:30 p.m., he actually didn't end up coming home. So his mother got worried and she ended up calling 911 to report him missing. But she wasn't the only parent who was missing their child that day. Colleen's parents, Peggy and Tom, noticed that she also didn't come home from school that day. So then sometime between 8 and 9 p.m., a mass email was sent out explaining that 14-year-old Philip Chisholm hadn't been seen and that his mother had reported him missing. And not too long after this, 2 really important connections were made. Not only were people becoming aware that Colleen was also missing, but they realized that the missing student, Philip, was in her last class of the day, which couldn't be a coincidence, right?
A case that will forever terrify me is the unsolved disappearance of the Springfield Three. Because what do you mean 3 women all disappeared from one house in the middle of the night without leaving behind one single clue? No sign of a struggle outside of the front porch light being shattered. Everything was exactly the way they had left it, yet 3 entire women just gone. That was 34 years ago, yet this is an unsolved case that many people still talk about because nothing about it makes any sense. This is the disturbing disappearance of the Springfield Three, and it's one that genuinely makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. So let's talk about it. This is Cheryl Levitt. She was a 47-year-old hairdresser who lived at 1717 East Delmar Street in Springfield, Missouri. She lived here with her 19-year-old daughter named Susie, and they were super close. Everyone who knew them said they had such a loving relationship, and by all accounts, life was pretty normal for them. They moved into this house in the spring of 1992, and outside of some pretty disturbing prank phone calls, this was their little oasis. On June 6, 1992, Susie and one of her best friends, Stacy McCall, graduated from high school. And it was a day that should have marked the beginning of the rest of their lives. But within 24 hours, Susie, Stacy, and Cheryl would all vanish into thin air, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions. So the 2 girls graduated at around 4 p.m. that day, and the ceremony was being held at Missouri State University's campus. In the audience was Cheryl, a proud mother watching her only daughter graduate. After the ceremony, their high school was hosting an all-night locked-in party inside the school, which a lot of people attended. But Susie and Stacy declined as they were going to a couple of other parties that night. The first stop of the night was to their friend's house in Battlefield. Her name was Janelle Kirby. Janelle's family was hosting a big family dinner with a bunch of out-of-town relatives staying the night, so it was a pretty big celebration. After dinner, Susie, Stacy, and Janelle went to Janelle's neighbor's house who was hosting the first party of the night. The Kirbys made sure to tell Susie's mom Cheryl exactly where the girls were so that if she needed anything, she knew where to call, but she never did. Cheryl was even invited to the Kirbys' dinner, but she decided to stay home instead and paint and varnish some furniture. The last time Cheryl was ever heard from was around 11:15 that night. She had talked to one of her friends on the phone talking about how she was just staying in and having a cozy night in her bedroom, and while the other 2 girls went about their night having fun, this would be the last time Cheryl would ever be heard from again. So fast forward to after the first party. Once that was over, Janelle, Stacy, and Susie all carpooled to some other little parties in Springfield. As the night went on, the girls put together this big plan for all of them and their friends to meet up the next morning at 8 a.m. to go to Whitewater, which was a water park in Branson, Missouri. The plan was really set in stone, and it was going to be a really fun way to kick off post-graduation life. And at this party, everyone seemed normal. The girls were having fun, rekindling old friendships, and making plans for the next few days, so nothing out of the ordinary. Just before 2 a.m., p.m., the last party that the girls were at was busted by Springfield police. So they all carpooled back to Janelle's house where they initially planned to stay the night. But since Janelle's house was packed full with her out-of-town relatives, Stacy and Susie decided to actually just head back to Susie's house to spend the rest of the night with her mom, Cheryl. This worked out great because Susie was super excited to show Stacy this brand new king-size waterbed she just got. And as the two were leaving, Janelle's mom heard Susie say, quote, "Follow me to my house," end quote, in which Stacy replied, quote, "Okay, I will." End quote. It's assumed that they both did in fact make it back to Susie's house as both of their cars were parked in the driveway, as well as the rest of their personal belongings. But what happened after the girls got home has never been explained. This brings us to June 7th, 1992. It was now 9 a.m., so an hour past the time Stacy and Susie were supposed to meet up with their friends to go to the water park. This really worried Janelle because they were both really responsible and wouldn't just leave her without saying anything. So Janelle and her boyfriend actually went to Susie and Cheryl's home at 1717 East Delmar, expecting to find them there. Janelle noticed the front door was unlocked, so she went in, but absolutely nobody was there. This seemed really weird to her because all of their cars were still parked out front. Nothing really seemed out of the ordinary besides the front porch light being shattered. The bulb itself was still intact, but the glass lampshade that covered it was what was broken. So the next detail I'm about to say is a little odd, but I guess Janelle was barefoot at the time, so she and her boyfriend decided to sweep up the broken glass that was on the front porch and throw it away. It was an innocent thing they tried to do, but we would later find that this action would possibly destroy any potential evidence, as this was an active crime scene. As Janelle was roaming the house, she found Susie and Cheryl's pet Yorkie, Cinnamon, who seemed really agitated. And as Janelle was about to leave the house, a series of phone calls came through on the home phone, so Janelle answered. She said this person sounded like a teen guy, and he was saying some really disturbing sexual things on top of profusely cussing. Every time the phone rang, it was this unidentified guy, and Janelle would hang up right away because what he was saying was very jarring. At the time, though, Janelle really didn't think much of it because she remembered Susie complaining about similar disturbing prank phone calls ever since she and her mom had moved into the house in that spring. So without finding anyone, Janelle and her boyfriend left, and instead of going to Whitewater, they went to a local water park instead. On top of not showing up to the water park, Susie was supposed to call her close friend and co-worker Nigel, but she never did. When he showed up to find out what was going on, though, something immediately stood out to him. Nigel described Susie as a creature of habit and said that every single day she would always park her car in the same exact spot in the driveway, which was under the carport. That morning, when people started showing up to look for the three women, Susie's car wasn't parked in her usual spot. It was further up the driveway, which was not normal. Although alarm bells started ringing, Nigel was really hoping this would have a good explanation. Maybe someone else was just parked in her spot under the carport when she and Stacy arrived home that night after the party. But this is only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the disturbing mystery surrounding this case. A few hours later, Stacy's mom begins to panic as well. She wasn't able to get a hold of her, and she knew a couple of employees at Whitewater that confirmed that neither of the girls ever showed up and checked in. So Stacy's mom actually went to Cheryl's home just like Janelle, and she found the door unlocked too. When she let herself inside, their Yorkie Cinnamon came barreling towards her. Poor Cinnamon was just going crazy inside the house, like she was barking and crying like something was really wrong. Stacy's mom continued walking through the house and found something odd. All three of the women's purses were sitting on the floor of Susie's bedroom. Cheryl had a $900 cash deposit from her salon still inside her purse. And what's super creepy is that she found Stacy's pants, socks, and jacket folded neatly inside the room. These were the clothes her daughter was wearing just the night before, and Stacy didn't have any other clothes on her besides this outfit. But what's creepy is that her shirt and underwear were missing from the scene. As creepy as it was, though, it literally looked as if all three women just stepped outside and would be right back, like time was frozen still. There were recently used makeup wipes from the girls sitting next to their jewelry and keys, and Cheryl's cigarettes were still inside the house. That tiny detail doesn't seem that weird until you learn that Cheryl was a chain smoker, and she never left anywhere without having her cigarettes on her. What really disturbs me, though, which I'm sure is just a coincidence, is that the book Oh, the Places You'll Go by Dr. Seuss was sitting on Susie's headboard. I don't know too many 19-year-olds who still have those books just laying around. But then again, this could just be a red herring, so to speak. The lights were off in Susie's bedroom, but the TV was on, just blaring static. It's likely the girls maybe watched a movie or something that night when they got home and just forgot to turn the TV off, which caused the static, but it's still really creepy to me. It also creeps Stacy's mom out to the point where she was now in full-blown panic mode. So she called the police directly from Cheryl and Susie's home phone to report the three women missing. After she called, she noticed that there was a message left on their answering machine, so she listened to it. What's super frustrating is that the voicemail was accidentally erased after she listened to it just that one time. But Stacy's mom described it as incredibly strange and even threatening. I guess it was common back then for answering machines in the 90s to erase the message after it played once, but it's just really unfortunate in this case because police believe that this message may have provided a clue and was possibly linked to the 3 women's disappearance. One thing they did clarify though was that they don't believe this specific voicemail was related to the many prank phone calls the home had received prior. So on top of the 911 call being placed roughly 16 hours after Cheryl, Susie, and Stacy were last seen, the crime scene was also horrendously contaminated. Not only did Janelle and her boyfriend clean up potential evidence, and Stacy's mom erasing that creepy voicemail, after the women were reported missing, about 20 of their worried friends and family showed up to the home to tidy up. Even though they were actively missing at this point, I'm sure they thought that they would just show back up and that nothing was really wrong. So they cleaned up. They emptied ashtrays, washed coffee cups. I mean, anything you can think of to clean, they probably did it. By the time Springfield police arrived on the scene, several people were just walking in and out of the house and yard, and the front door was wide open, so the crime scene was very contaminated, and any potential evidence left behind was just destroyed. Based on early testimony though, and from their own investigation, there was really no sign of a struggle except for that one broken front porch light. Cheryl's bed looked slept in, and one of the window blinds was awkwardly bent, which kind of stood out too. Everything of Susie, Cheryl's, and Stacy's was left behind, including driver's licenses, money, keys, jewelry, medicine, and even poor little Cinnamon. Police say the women were most likely abducted, and that little Cinnamon was likely the only witness to their disappearance. Investigators were really hoping that these women would just show back up, but in the following days, all 3 women had appointments and work that they needed to show up to, but they didn't. It was radio silence. This kickstarted a massive search for them, which included hundreds of volunteers, police, tracking dogs, and even helicopters. But it was like they just vanished into thin air. Literally no sign of them was ever found, not even the clothes that they were wearing that night. This was a really high-profile case at the time, so everyone knew about it, and it didn't take long for a possible lead to come in. Around the time of their disappearance, multiple people witnessed a brown Dodge van driving near the home. It seemed out of place, and a couple people even saw who they thought could be Susie driving the van looking absolutely terrified. Some even claimed to have heard a man yelling at her from the inside of the van. Although this seemed like a good lead, this brown van was never tracked down, and it ultimately led nowhere. In December of 1992, a man called the America's Most Wanted hotline with information about the Springfield 3's disappearance. I guess this was prime knowledge that no one should have known unless they committed the crime. But as the switchboard operator tried to transfer the call to the Springfield Police Department, the call disconnected. As a result, Springfield PD pleaded publicly for this man to come forward and tell them this information, but he never did. A few years later, this case would be turned upside down once again with some pretty disturbing information. So kind of tying into the brown van sighting, a man named Chuck Kassler commented on a blog post about this case with some pretty startling information. Chuck went on to say that he was around 17 years old when these disappearances took place, and he may have witnessed the women being abducted. That night, Chuck and one of his friends snuck out into the woods near Winoka Camp, which also just so happened to be near Cheryl and Susie's home, aka the crime scene. Chuck went on to say that he and his friend heard screams and crying coming from inside the house, and then they saw 3 women being loaded off of a brown van. He said he then saw horrible things being done to them near Winoka Camp before he and his friend took off. Chuck's comment attracted a lot of attention because it really lined up with the brown van sighting, but a lot of people didn't believe him for a few reasons. I guess the road to Winoka Camp is really narrow, so a large brown van like the one everyone saw likely went to fit on that back road. Winoka Camp was also a super popular spot for people to go and hang out, especially on graduation night. There should have been more people there who likely would have seen the same thing as Chuck, and it's also just a really risky spot to commit a crime. People also question why Chuck nor his friend ever said anything to police, or anyone at all for that matter, until years later. He said he was scared and that's why, but some people think the fact that he didn't try to help or report this to anyone is sketchy. Regardless, not long after Chuck made this comment about this case, he ended his own life, which is another weird aspect to this case. In 1997, Cheryl and Susie were officially declared legally dead, even though none of them have ever been found. Fast forward to 2007. This is when investigators received a disturbing tip. The tip was that the women's bodies were buried in the foundation of the south parking garage at Cox Hospital. So Kathy Baird, who is a crime reporter, teamed up with a mechanical engineer to scan the corner of the parking garage with ground-penetrating radar. When they did, they shockingly found 3 anomalies anomalies roughly the same size, and this was consistent with a gravesite location. 2 of the anomalies were parallel and 1 was perpendicular. So this seems like a great lead, right? Well, Springfield police say that this tip came from a psychic or someone who had a dream about this case. And although 3 anomalies were found there was no logical reasoning behind this theory, no physical evidence. And it's been reported that this parking garage began construction about a year after the Springfield 3 went missing. So with all of that combined, Springfield PD has refused to tear this down or dig anything up to investigate. They say it's too spendy to do all of this on nothing, and that this isn't a credible enough lead. Although it is risky and costly to do this, and the timeline seems just a hair off, part of me wonders if the women have really been buried there this entire time. Sadly though, nothing has been done about it, and all 3 of them remain missing. And although we don't know what exactly happened to them or who was responsible, there are a few theories and suspects. Theory number 1 is that they were all abducted, which is likely the case. But how and why is the question. Did someone follow the girls home from one of the parties that night? Did one of them get abducted leaving the Kirby residence and then forced to go home? And then all 3 of them were abducted just because? Was it a targeted kidnapping? If so, why did all 3 of them go missing then? Or did someone break into the home when it was just Cheryl there, and then the girls walked in on it while the crime was being committed? Or was this just a random break-in/robbery that just happened to escalate? Either way, why was there absolutely no sign of a struggle or any blood left behind? How did all 3 of them vanish all at once? It seems like it would take more than one person to overpower all 3 of them without leaving any evidence behind. But with this theory, there are a few suspects. Suspect number 1 is Dustin Rekla, Susie's ex-boyfriend. A few months before they disappeared, Dustin broke into a Springfield mausoleum and stole $30 worth of gold fillings from a human skull. After he was caught, Susie gave statements against him to the police, and she was also going to be a probable witness in court. This seems like a reason that he could have wanted revenge against her, but it just doesn't make sense why he would kidnap the other 2 women. But Dustin and the 2 friends that helped him in the robbery were in the area the night the women disappeared. So there's that. Suspect number 2 is Larry Hall, a suspected serial killer and convicted kidnapper and rapist. Larry would often travel around the Midwest for historical reenactments of the Civil War. He is believed to have abducted, tortured, and killed dozens of girls and women. On the morning and afternoon of June 6th, Larry had 2 battle reenactments at Wilson's Creek National Battlefield, which is 5 minutes away from the Kirby residence where Susie and Stacy were at that night. After Larry was arrested for another vicious crime, a former FBI agent actually went undercover and befriended him in prison. Larry confided in him a bunch of really disturbing details about his several murders that only the killer would know. He also kept a map of where all of his victims were abducted and killed. But sadly, the FBI agent blew his cover, and Larry destroyed this map before anyone could grab it. So it's not known if the Springfield 3 were included in this or not, although some of the dates did line up. Suspect number 3 is a man named Robert Craig Cox. He is also a convicted kidnapper and robber, and he claimed to know that the 3 women had been killed, but that their bodies would never be found. Robert was living in Springfield at the time of the disappearances, and he was even interviewed when this case first broke. He gave conflicting alibis, so police don't know if he's telling the truth, or if he just wanted attention by giving false statements about this case. He has no real credibility, so again, nothing is really tying him to this case. But Robert did say that once his mom dies, he will give up the location of the women's bodies, which is really sad. As of today, this case remains unsolved, but it's definitely one of those stories that makes you question what the heck could have possibly happened. It's one thing for one person to vanish into thin air, but 3 people all at the same time? That's terrifying, and not one theory really makes any sense. But it's now been 34 years, and whatever really happened to the Springfield 3 that night remains a mystery.
That's sad. I feel like if they were told that those women's bodies were buried under that parking garage, and then they found 3 anomalies that add up to the size of the women, and then they don't even tear it up. I get it costs money, but we've got millions and billions and trillions of dollars that, like, you know what I mean? Like, this is why, anyways. But I think maybe it was the first guy, the ex-boyfriend. I don't know. But the fact that there's 3 women missing and there was 3 of them that night that committed that crime. But we don't know. We won't know until we know. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed today's video. I wanted to throw something different in there. I'm going to start making my Saturdays, my crime story Saturdays. So it's going to be Crime Story Saturday. prayers to all the families that were affected by these crimes. Thank you for tuning in. I hope that you have an amazing 24. I hope that you have the best 7 you've ever had. And I pray that divine radiates love and kindness and compassion and abundance and peace and joy and all the things over your life today, tomorrow, and forever. So I see you in the next one. I love you.